If you stand on the dune at the end of Sag Main Beach in Sagaponack and look east along the sand, you will see a row of houses that breaks a rule most people never stop to think about. These are some of the most expensive homes in America. Sagaponack is one of the most expensive zip codes in the entire country, year after year, and in some years, it has topped the list outright. The oceanfront estates here trade for $20 million, $30 million, and the trophies at the very top run well past $50 million. One family built a compound nearby that is over 110,000 square feet, the largest private home in the United States. Glass walls, infinity pools, and private wooden stairs down to a private slice of the Atlantic. But what makes these houses shocking isn't the price. It's the ground they are standing on. Walk down to the water at high tide and look back at the base of these mansions, and on some of them, you will see the truth the listing photos never show you. The dune underneath is thinner than it was 10 years ago, thinner than it was last winter. The Atlantic is moving inland, a little more every year, and it is moving straight toward the most expensive real estate in the country. And here is the part almost nobody outside the East End understands. The people who own these homes are not allowed to stop it, not with a seawall, and not with a permanent wall of any kind. New York effectively outlawed it. So the richest homeowners in America are watching the ocean come for houses worth tens of millions of dollars. And the one thing that could actually save them, the law will not let them build. What they are allowed to do instead is one of the strangest arrangements in American real estate. And by the end of this, you will understand why some of these owners are quietly starting to sell to people who have not read the fine print. Start with the sand itself, because the sand was never solid ground. This whole stretch of the South Fork is a barrier beach, a long ribbon of sand piled up by the ocean over thousands of years. It was built to move. Storms pull sand off in the winter and push it back in the summer, and the whole shoreline drifts, mostly from east to west, a few feet at a time. Sand here does not really belong to any one property owner. It is on loan from the system, always traveling, always headed somewhere down the coast. For most of history, that did not matter, because nobody built a $30 million house on top of a moving sand dune. Then the Hamptons happened. After the war, the potato farms behind these beaches started turning into estates, and the estates kept marching closer to the water, because the closer you are to the ocean, the more the land is worth. Buyers at this level measure Sagaponack against Aspen and Palm Beach. A single new oceanfront house here recently sold for $20.5 million, and that was nowhere near the top of the market. Farmland became lots. Lots became teardowns. Teardowns became glass houses on pilings, sitting right on the edge of a beach that had been quietly retreating the entire time. And the numbers on that retreat are not small. At Mecox Road, just west of here, aerial photographs showed the dune losing 115 feet over 36 years. At Potato Road, 70 feet gone in the same period. That is not a beach eroding by inches. That is the ocean taking the length of a football field, one row of houses at a time. Every foot the beach moves inland is a foot closer to somebody's foundation, and unlike a farm, you cannot just slide a 20,000 square foot mansion back from the edge. It sits where it sits. So the moment the water gets close enough, the owner has a choice to make, and every option on the table is either wildly expensive or against the law. For a lot of these homeowners, the day the theory became real was the end of October 2012. That was Superstorm Sandy. When the surge hit the South Fork, it did not just flood basements. It tore the beach out from under the houses. Up and down Sagaponack, Bridgehampton, and Quogue, the dunes that had been protecting these homes simply washed away, and the foundations underneath dozens of houses were left completely exposed. Pilings standing in open air, decks hanging over a raw wall of sand where a beach used to be. Homes that had been worth tens of millions the week before were suddenly one more storm from falling into the sea. And here is where you see how these owners actually think. They did not wait. Within days, oceanfront homeowners were bringing in trucks, dumping truckloads of sand, and stacking walls of enormous sandbags in front of their houses, trying to buy themselves a few months before the next storm. The town, for its part, quietly suspended the usual permit requirements just so people could pile sand fast enough. For a moment, it looked like the ocean had made the decision for everyone, and the answer was pure chaos. But sand dumped by a panicking homeowner is not a plan. It washes away with the next big tide. And these owners did not get rich by solving problems one bad winter at a time. So a group of them sat down and did something only this kind of money makes possible. They decided that if the ocean was going to take their beach, they would build themselves a new one. 6 miles of it, running the length of the whole neighborhood, and they would pay for the entire thing themselves. In 2013 and 2014, roughly 150 oceanfront property owners in Sagaponack, Bridgehampton, and Watermill funded a private beach rebuild that cost about $26 million. The homeowners paid for it themselves, not the town and not the state. They created what are called beach erosion-control districts, basically a legal way to tax themselves as a group, and they hired dredging companies to pump sand up off the ocean floor and rebuild the beach in front of their homes. When it was finished, they had placed 2.5 million cubic yards of sand across 5.6 miles of coastline. Great dredges sat offshore and pumped that sand through a submerged pipeline straight onto the shore, while bulldozers pushed it into a fresh dune. They manufactured a beach, and it was good enough to win a national award for beach restoration. By any measure, it was a triumph of money over nature. It just did not last. And the bill was exactly as steep as you would expect. In the Bridgehampton district, the average share came out to around $148,000 per homeowner, spread over 10 years, on top of their regular property taxes. In Sagaponack, it was worse. The average homeowner there was looking at roughly $251,000. Ira Rennert, who owns that enormous compound, was assessed around $2.1 million for his share alone, more than $200,000 a year. These people paid $250,000 each, some of them millions, for sand. And getting everyone to agree was its own battle. Even among the oceanfront owners, it was not unanimous. At least 2 holdouts, a long-time Sagaponack farming family and a private beach club in Bridgehampton, dug in and refused to pay their share, arguing they had already given up development rights on their land and should not be taxed for sand on top of it. Their objection was enough to stall the entire project and kick it up to the state level, until the rest of the homeowners pressed the town to force it through on an emergency basis, before the next winter could finish what Sandy had started. And for a while, it looked like the smartest money they ever spent. David Letterman, one of the homeowners who rallied his neighbors to fund the project, said oceanfront property values shot up almost immediately. On one road, he said, the price of a lot doubled within a year of the beach being rebuilt because buyers suddenly believed they could tear down, build new, and be safe for 20 years. Think about that for a second. They spent $26 million burying sand on a beach, and it made them richer. If you are enjoying this one, take a second to subscribe, because this channel is where we follow the money into places most people never get to see. Because what happened next is the part the brokers leave out of the brochure. Here is what the ocean thinks of a beach that expensive. It takes it back. Sand pumped onto an eroding shoreline does not stay put, because the same currents and storms that stripped the beach in the first place are still there, still pulling every single day. The engineers know that going in. Pumped sand on an eroding coast is temporary by design. It buys a few years, the currents carry it off, and the beach has to be filled again, which is exactly what is happening. In 2025, barely a decade after that first project, the same homeowner started doing it all over again, pumping another 1.2 million cubic yards of sand onto the same 5.6 miles of beach to replace what the ocean had already carried off. a second round, and there will be a third and a fourth. So here is the real cost of what they bought in 2013. That first $26 million was only ever a down payment. The same charge comes due again roughly every decade, for as long as these houses stand, just to keep the Atlantic a few more feet from the front door. And you might be sitting there thinking, fine, if you own a $40 million house, a beach that renews itself every 10 years is just the cost of doing business. Pay it and move on. But here is where this story turns into something stranger than a big maintenance bill. Because pumping sand is expensive, yes. But on this coast, it is very nearly the only defense these homeowners are legally allowed to choose. The one thing that would truly hold the ocean back, a real wall, they are forbidden from building. And to understand why, you have to look at a decision one town made back in 1999 that quietly sealed the fate of every oceanfront mansion on this shoreline. For most of the 20th century, when the ocean threatened a valuable building, the answer was simple. You built something hard, a seawall, a bulkhead, a pile of giant boulders called a revetment, anything solid enough to throw the waves back. And it works. A properly built seawall really can hold the line and save the house behind it, which is exactly why, on this beach, it is banned. In 1999, the town of East Hampton adopted something called a local waterfront revitalization plan, and it took full effect in 2007. Buried inside it was a rule that changed everything. Hardened structures, seawalls, and bulkheads and revetments were outlawed along the ocean shoreline, except on a temporary basis in a genuine emergency. Southampton and New York State regulators take the same basic position. And the reasoning is not really about the homeowner at all. When you put a hard wall between the ocean and a house, the waves that hit that wall bounce down and scour away the sand right in front of it, and the beach that used to sit there disappears. A seawall can save one house and kill the public beach next to it. So the towns made a choice. They decided the beach matters more than any single mansion, and they took the strongest tool away from the people who own those mansions. So picture what that leaves you with if you own one of these homes. The ocean is coming. You have tens of millions of dollars on the line. And the law tells you that you may not build a permanent wall to protect it. What you can legally do is truck in sand, and in a real emergency, stack temporary sandbags. But even that comes with a condition that sounds almost invented. Under the town's coastal erosion rules, if you install those emergency sandbags, you have to post a bond to cover the cost of ripping them back out later, and you have to sign an easement giving the town permission to come onto your property and remove them for you. So before you can spend your own money to defend your own home, you first have to prepay for the destruction of that defense and hand the town a key. And the rules go further still. Even those emergency sandbags are capped at the minimum length needed to shield the house itself, and nothing more. You are not permitted to wrap and protect your whole property. Only the one principal structure, only for as long as the permit lasts. The state has quietly decided that these houses are not permanent, and it has written that decision into law. If you want to see what this actually looks like when it plays out, drive 20 minutes east to downtown Montauk. Montauk had a slightly different problem. It was not glass mansions on the line there. It was the motels and businesses of the whole downtown, sitting on an eroding beach. So in 2015, the Army Corps of Engineers in the town pushed through an emergency project, and it is the closest thing on this coast to the wall the mansion owners are not allowed to build. They buried a barrier of roughly 14,000 giant sandbags along about 3,200 feet of beach. The construction contract alone was $8.4 million, with the town and Suffolk County on the hook for another $150,000 to $175,000 a year, just to maintain it. This was a federal project, engineered and signed off at the highest level, and it still could not change the basic physics of the place. And people fought it. Hard. An environmental group called Defend H2O, led by a former local baykeeper named Kevin McAllister, teamed up with the Surfrider Foundation and sued to stop it. Their argument was simple, and it turned out to be exactly right. They said the pretty layer of sand sculpted over the top of those bags would wash off in the first few decent storms. And once it did, you would be left with a wall of exposed sandbags where a public beach used to be, and the town would be trapped, paying to rebury them again and again. That is more or less what happened. Storm after storm has stripped the sand back off and left the bags sticking out of the beach, and every time someone has to come pump more sand on top. It is the same slow leak the mansion owners are living, just out in public, and it is a preview of the deal waiting for every oceanfront homeowner on this coast. You do not get to solve the problem. The most you are allowed to do is rent a little more time from the ocean, at enormous cost, on a bill that never stops coming, and the ocean is not slowing down. So step back and look at the whole trap these owners are standing in. The sea along this coast has already climbed more than a foot over the last century, and every serious projection has it rising faster from here. The storms that do the real damage are getting stronger at the same time. The beach itself only moves in one direction, inland, toward the houses, and there is no year on the calendar where that reverses. The single tool that could genuinely hold it back is illegal. And the only legal defense, pumping sand, washes away on a schedule, which means the bill for it never ends. Every year the math gets a little worse, and every year the water gets a little closer. Which is why, if you watch the very top of this market closely, you start to notice something. Some of these homes quietly change hands, sold by owners who have run the numbers and decided they would rather be the one who sells than the one still holding the deed when the ocean finally wins. And the buyer on the other side is often someone newer, dazzled by the glass and the view and the private beach, who has not yet sat through a town meeting about bonds and easements and sandbags that have to be torn back out. So here is the real question, and I genuinely want to know where you land. When a beach is disappearing and a wall would ruin it for everyone else, who should win? The billionaire who paid $50 million for the house and just wants to protect what is his? Or the public, who own that beach too, and lose it the moment the walls go up? And did these owners get exactly what they paid for when they bought a mansion on a shoreline that was already walking away? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more stories about the places where the richest people in the world run straight into a problem money cannot fix, you already know what to do.